Good day everyone and welcome back to the studio. Today I wanted to start a huge project with you. We are going to be working on this massive 50 by 50 inch canvas and I am wanting to paint a nice polar bear to keep with my Canadian theme, and as you know I like painting animals and wildlife, so there we go. So we're going to be doing this one in oil, and I do want to walk you through the process. And one message that I want to send everyone: when you're learning how to paint, I know the sort of default mode is to sort of start small, and while starting small is great for practicing, it can actually hinder your progress. So definitely getting your hands on, getting dirty, and painting big can be really great for your progress. So I want to show you just how to tackle these big canvases. It's actually not, it usually doesn't take any more time actually than the small ones, and you'll find that you really loosen up and your painting will just get better over time just by painting large. So don't be afraid of the big canvas. We're going to dive in together and I'm going to walk you through the process. So I do have over here my digital sketch. I like to plan my things out on my iPad in Procreate before I paint. So I will be giving that video on, that photo on Patreon, my sketch. I think I do have actually filming turned on, so I might be able to also upload a little process video of my sketching process. But yeah, I will be providing that on Patreon for anyone who wants to sign up and follow the full tutorial. If not, I hope you get something out of this short little video clip, and let's dive in. So first things first though, what the hell am I using? I really like water-soluble oils just because I prefer a less toxic cleanup and working process for my health and the environment and other things. And I use a Stay Wet palette because I am mixing medium W in with my paints to make them water soluble. The humid environment does actually keep them wet longer. So right now I just took a stab at the colors I needed. I can always add more or adjust later, but I've got a ivory black, titanium white, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, manganese blue for my light because it stays nice and bright and it is to the green tone. And then I've got a Naples yellow and a lemon yellow, but I may switch that out later for a cad yellow, cadmium-free cad yellow light, just because it will be more opaque, and I think it's going to have a little bit of a bigger impact in my mixes. But so far I have a lemon, so that's what I'm using. Water for cleanup, even though it's oil. And I have medium W by Schminke. This will convert any oil paint to a water soluble. I have some Winsor Newton water soluble on my palette right now, and I have some that are not water soluble, so I just mix a little bit of this in with everything and I'm good to go. They play really well together. In terms of brushes, I tend to like flat brushes, and I just have a whole bunch, and I have more brushes. So when I'm working large, I like to use the larger brushes. So I've got like a mixed bag here. Raphael texture ones I love. They're synthetic. They keep their shape really well. And that's mostly what I've got here. So I will just say I've got some soft acrylic. They kind of hold their shape too, but they do get a little bit more ragged faster. So I would say if you're looking for a budget brush that works super well, the Raphael Textura Synthetic has been fabulous for me. It's just rigid enough that it keeps its shape and moves the paint, and strong enough that it holds its shape for a while. So yeah, bigger brushes. Artisan also has a line that I sometimes use, so this is a nice big flat brush. I do prefer flats and angles. Rounds I use more for portraits and like really fine detail for later at the end, but we're going to stick to large flats. And I will let you pick your brush. My goal, let's see, oh my god, too many choices, this happens. I'm actually going to take this big angle brush and maybe my Artisan, and also this acrylic brush from Ovis. So I've got a few different largest angle and flat brushes for now. So I will just dive in with this. And I think what I will do, so with oil paints you start dark to light, and I am going to start just with the nose and features to get them blocked out, and then I will go into some shadows, and there's a whole bunch of different colors going on. in the water and mostly greens and blues. I'm playing a lot with temperature in this because we want to see through the water sort of to the impression of the bear underneath, so it's lighter and a little more green, and then in the darker parts it's a little bit more blue-purple. And then, yeah, just some rocks in the background, and we have a joke that this isn't a polar bear, it is an albino grizzly bear that's been sent back and forth to the Arctic a few times. I don't know if you saw that story, but hilarious. So let's get into it. Actually, I'm going to take a slightly smaller brush for the nose area, so I'm just going to grab a few favorites and set them aside. I got my trusty iPad with my sketch so I can take a peek at it. Oh, one thing I forgot very quickly. I'm going to add some of my medium to my paints right now with a palette knife. So I can just get a little bit of, it's supposed to be a 50-50. I'll come this way. This is supposed to be a 50-50 mix. I'm not really that precise about it. If I need more, I add it. And I'll just mix it in as I go. I think that might actually be Water-Soluble already. So it's sitting there and I can just blend it in as I start using the paint. So I'm going to start with the black. Okay. And again, like I said, I watch temperature a lot in my painting, so in my drawing here, in the nose and in the muzzle area, it's a lot of black, but it then tints warm and cool, so I can do that just by adding a little bit of ultramarine blue in, and then a little bit of burnt sienna. And you always go like thin to thick with oil paint, so I'm keeping this quite a bit thinner at the moment. And so I did draw out my polar bear with acrylic marker. So I did an acrylic ground that is basically just a mix of gesso and blue paints. So I think there's a little bit of cerulean blue in there, and then also a little touch of ultramarine blue. But I wanted a nice cool background because it is a very cool painting. And I'm just, I hope you guys can see this again. It's hard to figure out the angle, but I'm just sort of cutting in to these areas, and I'm just putting black paint where everything is darkest. I do want this to be kind of graphic and a bit illustrative. So black helps to do that. Okay, so the next part, this is sort of the nose blocked in. I see lighter tones, so lighter in value and cool, so I'm going to add some blue and some white into my mix. I'm going to go darker first. So like this stays quite dark. That's not enough white. Sometimes I go too light and then I go too dark on my palette. Okay, so I'm going to add some light down here because there's a little bit of light. If it's too light later, I can glaze that back out. And then I'm going to add more blue to that because I find it a bit too warm. So I mix adjacent, so I just start with little piles and I mix around them, and then just change the color slowly as I go. This is still really dark, by the way, in this area. And then there's some sort of darker spots coming this way. I don't want to be too precious with my brush strokes. I'm personally trying to limit the amount of details that I'm allowed to paint. I want to go for more interesting loose brush strokes over detail. Partially it helps speed up my process, but it also makes paintings look a little bit more alive and a little more interesting. And then that also helps draw people in from far because you're working on a macro level, balancing value, contrast, and color saturation and composition. And then when people get up close, then I do a little bit more detail at the end just to reward people from coming in and looking at it from afar. So into the nostril here, it turns a little bit more blue as it goes into that shadow. Could actually go a lot more blue than this. There we go. It's also misleading right now because my canvas is so blue. When the other tones lighten and warm around these, it's going to change the look. So I know already that I do need to compensate for that a little bit. And that is one of the challenges of painting on a toned ground. For the first part of your painting, you're kind of contending with the color that you've laid down. It warms up over here, so I'm going to pull back a little bit. But I do need another dark blue, but it needs to be much more blue and not not quite as dark as the black, but darker than the light I just made. And I'll go a bit lighter. And also to my blue tone. And then when I have colors on my brush that I know are in other spots of the painting, I just kind of hunt around on my reference, and I'm just gonna sort of start dropping that in. So I know that this color can easily live up here. Go darker into that crease there. And I get a little bit more blue, and actually maybe a bit of manganese blue this time to cool some stuff off here. And I'm just going to come into, let's see, that's going to go lighter after, but need more blue in here. Just to be a little bit, and we can always go back over these colors. If they're not saturated enough, you can actually just glaze some saturation over. A little bit more manganese. So it's more of a green blue up in here. There we go. just brushing in the direction of the fur, just to already get that moving. So now I think what I'm going to do is switch my brush. So I'm going to keep this as my cool blue brush, and I'm going to go in and mix some of my warm tones so that I can start getting a sense of how cool this actually is against the actual tones that are going to be in the bear, because right now they're competing. So I'm going to take some whites. There's a little bit of black mixed in, but that is okay. And I'm actually going to take some Naples yellow. That's nice and warm. See how warm that looks compared? It's small for you guys. This painting was so massive. It's really warm compared to the blue canvas. So this is going to be really punchy when the blue shows through. I'm mixing up more white in here because this is really close to white in some of these areas. So there's still a touch of color, but it's not white white. Okay, so pure titanium white is a very cool white. So I'm going to use that for the cool on the bear, but I'm going to add a little bit of black in part. So black is going to be warmer than the blues that I've added. And it's just going to give me a bit of warmth in my shadows and then a cool light in my highlights. So I'm going to go in just with like the titanium white because in here, there's still some yellow on my brush, but that's okay. We'll adjust this after. And if I need to adjust, actually I'm going to take another brush just to make it really clean. There we go. So I'm just kind of tracking where my lightest lights are right now. I'm going to set up here. I'm going to add a little bit of black and maybe a tiny bit of blue to this white just to cool it down and darken it out a little. Okay, so I'm heading around the eye. I'm heading in around the eye now, which gets darker, so I'm just going to add some more of that dark to my brush, but what I'm doing here is allowing my brush strokes to kind of mix with each other. And I'm just using the edge of my brush and flicking my wrist to get the feeling of fur. So I'm not painting every fur, I'm just giving you the idea of fur. And actually some blue, it's a blue-black I'm seeing. So I'm going to add some ultramarine blue so that I can do the lid. Not dark enough, but I can always darken this later. And since I'm working dark, I don't have dark on my brush, I'm just going to go in and do the dark on the ear. It's a little bit warmer. I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna. And down here, there's dark in the mouth. So I'm just going to add this in, and it's a warmer black. So I saved this until now because I knew that I needed some warm blacks. Right. So I'm going to just lighten this color because if I look at the shadow color and then I look where it's turning into the highlight, it's actually carrying the same tone. So I'm just going to add a bit of white to this color on my palette. So this mix is burnt sienna, black, and white. And you'll see it goes quite yellow, especially against this blue. And again, I've got sort of darker tones for now. Just making a couple marks to sort of flow where the hair is and the form is, just to kind of mark those out. And then I'm looking at like a balance of warm and cool too. So the ears are warm, and it's always like a transition. So you want like light on dark on light on dark, and warm on cool and warm on cool. So this area is like a really warm, bright light, and then it comes into like a cooler area. And then it goes into a warmer and then a cooler patch and then a warmer patch here that's lighter, and then this stays warm but it's darker to give that sense of rhythm. So I may just get my other brush and just patch this in cool. And I actually think I can add more color to this, so more green blue, so that's my manganese, more manganese blue in here. This is also a mid-tone blue, so it's going to throw off. And actually, you see a bit of warmth in there too, so I may add some ultramarine to it. And I didn't totally finish my sentence. This is a mid-tone, so it's going to throw off my values for a little while until things start sort of coming together. So sometimes I'll paint things in initially, and then it's not quite the right value. I'll just go back and touch that up later. This is more of just like a color block in right now. There we go. That's a better color. It's a little bit cooler on the blues there. too saturated. There we go. I need this darker but less saturated than I've had it. All of this is going to go darker. I haven't quite hit the mark, but it's okay for now. There's some coolness that does come up into here, so I'm just going to allow this to mix on my canvas. And again, just looking for similar colors and values that are on my brush. I'm just going darker and more blue. I've put a bit of white in my brush right now, so it's making it challenging going dark enough, but I will darken it after. It's fine. I'm not worried. Alright. Green. Green. Bounce light coming up in here a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just warm this section up. So that's pretty much literally all I can handle for the moment. It stinks like oil paint in here. I'm super hot. So I'm going to take a break. I don't know when I'm going to come back to this, if it'll be today or another day, but I thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this. So basically, just to resume what I've done, big brushes, loose brush strokes, tinted grounds to give me something to pull through my painting. You've got to watch out for the conflict of the value and the color and the saturation of the background as you're setting up your initial colors. So you just want to remind yourself that it's going to influence what's going down, and you kind of have to ignore it and work on top of it until you feel it out. Yeah, and then balancing between warm and cool, and try to stay gestural, and that's it for today. And so we will continue this, and I thank you so much for joining in. I will be filming this whole process and adding everything to Patreon, and you will get the sketch and everything else that you need to finish this painting. So have a great day, and thanks for stopping in. Bye guys.